Welcome to another edition of Conscious Connections, where we explore soul centered conversations that awaken truth, inspire healing, and remind us of our divine power. I am your host, Dr. Deborah Carson, the creator of the Fear to Freedom Project, and I love to sit down with beautiful souls who are transforming lives through their gifts, their stories, and their wisdom. And together we move beyond fear right into freedom, one conscious conversation at a time. Today's conversation invites us into one of the most profound questions that we can ask as human beings. What happens when we die? What happens when we leave our body? Well, today's guest, David Suich, has spent nearly 2 decades exploring this question. He's a Palladian teacher, author, a spiritual counselor. And in 2007, during a painful and chronic physical condition that triggered severe depression, he clicked on a YouTube video about an atheist who died and visited heaven. This led him on a 19-year journey of research into near death experiences, including testimonies of over 1,200 people, nearly 2,000, I think now, who have
Yeah,
died.
I stopped counting.
Yes, yes, and who's seen the afterlife and returned. Welcome to the show, David. Thank you for
Deborah,
coming.
thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be on your show today.
Now, the first question I want to ask you is what are you most excited about in life right now?
Oh, I'm excited right now about all the research I did for my second book called The New World of Love. And it's just, you look around at the world today and it seems like everything's falling apart. It seems
Yeah.
like the world's going to hell in a handbasket.
Mhm.
And nothing could be further from the truth. Um, Before any great change, there's great chaos. There's
Yeah.
nothing in the appearance of a caterpillar that tells you it's going to become a butterfly. And so when I had to do all this investigation, I was so encouraged by all the good stuff I see happening in the world right now.
Mm.
There's an equal amount, there's probably more evil happening than good right now, but there's a lot of good happening in the world.
There's a lot
And
of light on the earth.
and what we focus on has a great deal of effect on our level of happiness and what we manifest as a species. So, focusing on the positive stuff, seeing all these examples of beautiful things happening in the world really lifted my spirits. So, put me in a good mood actually doing that research. Yeah.
Yes, I'm glad. Well, I'm excited about this conversation because the first time I even knew anything about an NDE was my mom gave me a book called Embraced by the Light by Betty Eadie. And that I read that book and I'm like, "Oh, this is so vivid." I was a teenager and I just wanted to go to that place. I just remember wanting to go to that place. So, yeah, and even as a teenager, it's kind of funny and weird, but I flirted with the idea. That's when I started flirting with the idea of suicide.
Mhm.
And that idea would stay with me for decades. Okay? Decades, well into my 50s, and I'm 59. All right. I'll be 60 this year. So, and I think I flirted with that idea because of what goes on earth, and it was just, like, so heartbreaking what was happening. So I want you to just like, how did you get into NDE research? If you can briefly just give us, like, a little backdrop, because I got a lot of questions, and we got a
Okay.
little bit of time. So how did you come to this research?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the question of suicide because in my NDE research, I learned that every negative experience here on earth is something that souls will intentionally choose for the purposes of learning and growth. Think of the worst things that human beings do to each other. They can all and are used for learning and growing. The one exception is suicide. It's always a step back in our development. I was there myself every day for 3 years at one point. I begged God to take me home. And that's something we have to avoid at all costs because it's like dropping a class that you need for college. You just
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
go back and do it
and
again.
you gotta repeat it.
So, what brought me to those suicidal thoughts was chronic pain. In 1999, I was 34 years old, engineer, working for a Fortune 500 company, making good money. Life was grand. And I used to joke around saying I had to look for things to complain about because my life was so good. And then I came down with chronic tendonitis. Started with my hands, went to my feet and my jaw. And it caused me, after 8 years of worsening pain, seeing lots of doctors, I lost faith. I thought, well, God either doesn't exist or more likely he exists, but because I'm a bad Christian boy, he's got nothing to do with me. I'm not
Yeah.
going to heal this guy. He hasn't obeyed my word. Now, that was the programming from religion in my head. And I clicked on a random YouTube video in 2007 when YouTube was fairly new. It just came up in my feed about an atheist who died, saw the afterlife and return. He's since become a friend of mine, Howard Storm. I think he just finished his ninth book. He's working on his 10th. And that transformed my life. I started investigating near death experiences. And then I thought, well, there's lots of individual testimonies out there that are great that people have wrote books about. And I read a lot. And there's lots of high esoteric concepts that if you're spiritual, you get it, but otherwise you're lost. And I thought, I got to write a spirituality 101 based on what these guys say.
Yeah.
And oh, that was nice. I made a little bit of money from it, but most of my money I get from my engineering career. I'm a power plant engineer, but that's okay. A lot of times right now, we have to divide our spiritual work and our work we make for money. That's eventually going to become one. But that's what got me started on my journey, totally transformed my life. I dealt with depression my whole life. That's mostly gone. I dealt with chronic pain for 20 years. I'm miraculously healed in my 50s. That's not normal. And it was
Yeah.
all because of this spiritual work. It healed my relationship with my family. It changed the way I view nature. It transformed my life, having never had a near death experience myself. And the most wonderful thing is the people like you and all the near death experiencers I meet. And it's been a wonderful journey. I'm grateful for all those who have freely shared their testimonies with me.
Well, you know what? You talk about the near-death experiencers who everyone, even the ones that I watch, and I'm always obsessed. I've started watching them, and
Me
I'm
too.
just like, I just wanna watch, like, it's like I wanna embody what they feel, and I kinda do, and it always gives me hope, so but you talk about and everyone talks about having this overwhelming unconditional love. Everybody feels this overwhelming, unconditional love that is unexplainable, and it's not the type of love that we have for each other, like, we can't even get to it. And
Yeah.
so, I wanted to know, everybody has that same common theme, but when they return to Earth, what is the central lesson that they're meant to live out? Other than love, I know we're supposed to love, but does anybody have, like, a central lesson that they're supposed to live out from that experience?
Yes, there are many meaningful lessons. So near death experiencers come back completely transformed. They become less materialistic, more spiritual. They become less focused on whatever was the primary thing in their life before, whether it was a relationship or money or a career or politics or something. Whatever their central focus was, that kind of takes a back seat. That becomes a secondary thing. And their primary focus becomes meaningful, loving relationships and service to humanity because they're shown that we're all connected. When you help one individual, you help the whole. That's why you hear near death experiencers say things like, you bring hope or joy to one soul, and millions receive the vibration. One person living in unconditional love is more powerful than millions living in fear. And there's even
Yes.
information about that in ancient sacred books like the Bible. First Peter 4:8, love covers a multitude of sins. It's a
Mhm.
powerful emotion. And so that is the main thing that happens. They tend to live in the moment. They tend to take more risks. They tend to be loving towards all people, and they lose their fear of death. So there's a lot of transformative changes that happen.
So, you know what I heard you say on a podcast, and this was
What's
really
that?
cool, and I was like, "Yeah, that's so true." Okay. So I think maybe, someone asked, like, "Why don't we all, like, know? Like, why do we come here forgetting?" And you were like, "Well, if we all remembered." I don't know, maybe it wasn't you, but I thought it was, but like, if we all came here with the awareness that we were just like that awareness that we came from the light and we knew who we were, we would all be, like, trying to commit suicide to get back there. Was that you saying that?
That might have been. Yeah.
I
So
don't know, but I think I saw you said and it's like, we would all be, like, trying to commit suicide, like, why would we stay here, you know what I mean? And I said, "I guess that's right." I have a girlfriend, she is a bridge between the worlds, and she said, "Well, can you imagine if you were a baby and you knew that you were gonna have diabetes at 60? Like, you were asking for your bottle, but you also were trying to process how you were going to get through, having this forgetful state. There's a reason for it, and I
Yes,
understand
there
that
is.
this intelligence of creation is just a wonderful thing, but yeah, sometimes I just wonder, like, why did I do this? Honestly, I really do. A lot. I'm like, what am I getting out of this deal? So, all right, let me move on.
Do you wanna talk about that? Why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why do
Yeah.
we forget? Because that's an important question. A lot of
Well,
people are
I feel
seeking.
like I know why I mean, why do we forget? I mean, it's a built-in intelligence. Why would we stay here if we remembered? Nobody would want to stay here. I don't think.
The reason
What
a
do you think?
soul decides to come to Earth is very simple. To put it bluntly, it's because you are brave. You are brave and you wanted to grow in a way that's difficult in heaven, in the perfect environment of heaven. It is difficult to grow and change. No challenge, no growth, no pain, no gain. And so the bravest, the absolute bravest of souls incarnate and come here. Now, in heaven, you're connected to universal consciousness. You know everything. So, do we really learn anything here? What we have on earth is experiential learning. Now, what does
Yeah.
that mean? Let's say we're going to make this up. There's no such person, but let's say there's a guy who gets out of school at age 21. He's got a degree in engineering, gets a job in the 60s or whenever Disneyland first started. And he's the head engineer at Disneyland. He designs all the rides. He's works there his whole life. So here it is, decades later. He's 85 years old. He's worked at Disneyland his whole career. He knows Disneyland better than anybody on earth. He's been on all the rides hundreds of times. He knows the schedules, the operations, the employees, all the workings. And there's nobody who knows more that he's not going to learn anything more about Disneyland by going to Disneyland, is he? Unless he can do two things. So here he is, he's 85. He spends a day at Disneyland. It's like, okay, he's going to maybe enjoy it, but it's like, eh.
Okay.
So what does he have to do to have a different experience, to have an experiential learning experience? He has to do two things. Number one, he's got to have amnesia, which is what we have. He's got to forget everything he knows about Disneyland. And number two, he has to limit his consciousness, which is what we do. We have this human limited consciousness. And he spends a day at Disneyland believing he's a 10-year-old child exploring Disneyland for the first time. Now, at the end of the day, he's him again. He's got all his memories of every day, work and leisure he ever spent at Disneyland. But that day is different, isn't it?
Mm,
He experiences the wonder and the joy of exploring it all.
mm,
That's what we're doing down here. We disconnect. We are in difficult environments in a fear love duality where we experience pain and suffering and anxiety and loss and all sorts of horrible things. And we find the light within that environment. And
mm,
that is what causes or is a big part of the engine of growth of creation. Near death experiencers have been told that if it were not for souls deciding to leave the comfort and beauty and joy and perfection of their heavenly homes and coming down into these physical lives, the environment of heaven could not continue to grow and evolve. We are a critical
mm,
part of the engine of growth of creation, and Earth is the hardest planet in this galaxy in which to choose a life. It's one of three hardest in the universe. So the fact that you're here, I don't care how much of a mess your life is compared i- in the perspective of the way the world judges you. The world doesn't see what we're really doing down here. Doesn't matter how messed up your life is. If you're here listening to this now, you are an amazing success story. You are one of the best of the best of the best of incarnating,
yeah,
and
I heard you
you are
say that.
doing
You
the
were
hard
like
work for creation. Yes.
I heard you say that for every one body, there's so many souls that wanna come into this body, and so you're
Yes.
the best. I heard you say that, I was like, are you serious? Souls are like, "I wanna go, I wanna go." Are you I mean, this is the visual that came to my head, and I couldn't imagine that.
Well, there are trillions of souls, but
Yeah,
only a small percentage want to do these incarnation to a place like Earth because it's so awful. Okay, so it's a small percentage that want to come here. But when you take a small percentage of trillions, it's still a lot.
Yeah.
And so for every body that's here, there's about 100 souls that want to come. So not only do you have
Wow.
to be really qualified for a place like Earth, you're one of the top 1% who got
That
here.
one.
So
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
like an expert if you're here. It's an expert in
Wow.
the class. That's what we're doing
That's
down here. Yeah.
so in heaven or on the other side in the cosmos, when what are the souls doing there? Are they teaching? Like, I understand that some souls are, like, teaching even souls to prepare them to come here
Oh,
to
yeah. Yeah.
okay.
So there's
I
many
could see
roles. So you'll get to an end of an incarnation cycle where you've learned all you can with physical incarnations. You've done all the help you can for creation. And then you become one of the masters who helps people on earth, or you might be involved in different parts of creation in heaven. There's just as many jobs as there are on earth, many different functions, many different roles in society. Take that, multiply it by a trillion, and that's how many different roles there are in heaven. And there's a lot
mhm,
of fun and play too. There's
mhm,
entire
mhm,
planets, environments they create to go and frolic and play.
mm.
So, and because there's no time in heaven, which don't ask me about that, I don't understand what that means, but they all say it. All the near death
Yeah,
experience say there's no time up there.
yeah,
You
I
literally
understand
have
that.
all of eternity. There's never any rush. So you can spend a century just relaxing if you want, but people don't do
Mhm.
that. They get bored. So they tend to want to contribute to make the family of love of creation a better place, which is what we're involved in right now in these
That's
lives.
very interesting. You talked about in your book, you talk about 4 levels of consciousness, the survival consciousness, right? People that are
Yes,
selfish, that are out there kind of, doing things to people that we shouldn't, right? And then common consciousness, which is where most of us pretty much lie in the common consciousness. And then you talk about higher consciousness, which I would consider myself, yourself, like higher consciousness. You're aware
we are.
that
We're
you're a soul,
yeah.
right? And then there's the universal consciousness, which I aspire to get to, right? Because you talked about for 2 days that after deep meditation and counseling, that you were in that space of universal consciousness. Now, what I wanna know is after those 2 days, what did it feel like for you to shift back into that calm and higher consciousness? What like, was there a sense of loss for you? Were you like, "Damn," like, you saw beauty in loving everybody, and then all of a sudden you were like, "What the F?" Like, "I'm back," you know? How was that experience for you?
It was difficult coming back down, but it was about the middle of the 3rd day when I started coming back down. I was like, "Oh," because colors look brighter. I remember walking outside of my apartment
Mhm.
and, it's just a normal street with trees and some flowers and people's gardens and stuff. Same thing I always saw for years, and it looked like a garden paradise. And when it started to fade, I was like,
Wow.
"Oh," but I knew it's like, that's a glimpse. Because we all shift through levels of consciousness. We sometimes will shift throughout the day between 2 or 3 different levels. Somebody cuts you off and you really get angry. You son of a gun.
Yeah,
You've
yeah.
shifted into animal consciousness or survival consciousness. And then we're in common a lot of the times. And then people like you and I, who are older souls, like to spend most of our time in higher consciousness. But we all have our moments of universal consciousness. Yeah.
Mm,
And it
mm.
was wonderful. So it was like more like a teaching moment. It's like, okay, that's how I'm supposed to be. Never
Oh,
thinking a negative thought about somebody else. Love for
yeah.
all of creation, every animal, plant, and human being, and myself. And so it was a really
Mm,
good teaching moment. And I've had a couple of half days and days like that since then. Just last week, I had a day like that, and it was
good.
wonderful. And I walked
Yes.
outside here of the trailer park I'm in. My wife and I are between houses right now.
Uh-huh.
We're selling one, and it's just a normal looking trailer park, and I walked outside. "Look at how blue the sky is. Look at these beautiful trees." And I went and said hi to their trees, and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wonderful, that
yeah.
state.
So another question that was on my mind because I don't hear a lot of near death experiencers talk about their ancestors. I don't. They talk about guides, they talk about having this life review and my ancestors are very vocal and they are very present in my life and they've been here on earth and there are things that they have left here out of place on earth so they're on the other side and that's the reason I think they're guiding us, they're healing some lineage and other things. So did anybody talk about seeing their ancestors when they were there?
Oh, yeah. Oh, remember one woman met one of her ancestors, and they had a conversation about how he was came to the United States when it was new, and they crossed the prairies. They were exploring. Oh yeah, people meet their ancestors, and I'm
Mm,
so glad you brought that up because this is one thing that is really important for spirituality that most light workers and spiritual people tend to miss, and that is giving gratitude and honoring our ancestors
yes.
who did so many things and who in many ways, especially in certain groups, were far more spiritual and connected to the divine than we are today, although we're catching up. And I hope it doesn't bother anybody to know that when you're honoring your ancestors, you're honoring you
Yes,
because we are
you
our
are
ancestors.
yes,
Yes, we
David.
are.
Yes, exactly, I love that. Okay, good, good, good. We're on the same page. Bashar. So David Anka Daryl Anka has been channeling an ET for over 40 years,
Oh, yeah.
and that ET is named Bashar, and I really love Bashar. I don't even know how I came upon Bashar, but when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. When you ask questions, answers, like the universe is going to bring what you need most at the moment. And I needed
Yeah.
Bashar. And so it doesn't matter whether or not I believe that Bashar exists. What comes out of that man's mouth, what Bashar is talking about, when I apply it to my life, it works, right? And so that's where I was stuck. And so Bashar talks about us actually being in this sleep state. So we're really sleep, but then when we go to sleep at night, that's our awake state. How do you feel about that?
Sure. When we sleep at night, every night we leave our body. So there are probably some listening who've had that feeling that when you're half asleep, you feel like you're falling into your bed or something. That's your spirit slamming back into your body. I used to have that experience when I was younger.
Oh.
We go to the afterlife every night. We don't remember it because we would do nothing but long for that life if we did. It'd be too difficult to come back here.
Yeah.
But we get advice, guidance. That's why so many people say, "Well, I'm gonna sleep on this." And in the morning, they know what to do. Well, they had communication with their guides. That's why it happened.
Yeah.
But he's right. Bashar is correct. When you are dreaming, you believe your dream world is real. And when you wake up, you realize that, oh, I thought I was a victim of that nightmare. But you were simultaneously creating and experiencing that dream world that you lived in, and you can actually control it once you realize you're in a dream. Anybody ever had a dream and you go, wait a minute, this is a dream, and now you can run the show? I tell you, these lives are no different. It's
That
just
is
a higher
interesting.
level of awareness, higher level of consciousness. And when you come out of your body someday, when you die, it's just like that. You wake up, you're in a higher level of consciousness. You feel more real and more alive than you've ever felt in your life. The height
Wow.
of existence, and you go, "Oh, this is where I came from. Now I remember." People are so common in near death experience testimonies to hear people say, "Oh, yes, I got to heaven. Now I remember this is where I came from. I went down there to have a little adventure and to learn and to grow and to help my heavenly Father and to help creation." And now let me give a little disclaimer here. I use the term he and Father for God because that's the tradition in our culture. God contains all that is masculine and feminine. He doesn't have a gender.
Yes, I was gonna
I
talk
guess he's
about
gender
okay.
fluid.
Right, so we should say goddess. We should say goddess. Everybody says God. Nobody says goddess, and we should use
and
that
it's
term.
both. It's both.
Yes, it is both, and the feminine is we need more feminine, energy on this earth and in the world. I believe, and I love
You
you
do.
guys, but I believe that, that's the reason why we're in a mess because men have been controlling it, and
You
so
want to talk
now
about that briefly?
I wanna talk about something you gotta go. You know this,
That's
right?
true.
You can come back, but
Okay.
you have to go. I got a couple more questions, okay?
I got
So
one thing to say about that.
okay, go ahead, go ahead.
An old Indian proverb. Don't demonize men. There's a lot to blame right now. They're causing a lot of problems because they've been in charge. If women were in charge and men had no say, there'd be a whole different set of problems. This is an old Indian proverb. A man and a woman are like two wings of the same bird. Only together can they fly.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
partnership, and it's important.
Yes, partners, right, exactly, I agree with that, that sounds beautiful. What about so we talk about, like, Earth is this sacred place, this sacred
Yeah.
opportunity, but then it also is a deeply challenging experience, right? So how can we hold, like, both those truths at the same time without spiritual bypass? Without saying, "Okay, the real pain that you're going through, it's just all about love, like, we're here to enjoy, we're here to experience." I feel like we bypass spiritually when we do that, like, how can we hold both of those truths and not do that? Because
Well,
I
'cause
hear a lot of people
the basic question is, why are we suffering down here?
okay,
Is that
if you
we wanna address that? So,
well, I understand that we're suffering. I do that, but maybe other people don't. So, for the audience, why are we suffering?
okay, so if you talk to all the people who've climbed Mount Everest and you say to them, "What was the main reason you did it?" You're gonna hear a bunch of different reasons. Not one of them is gonna say, "Well, I wanted to suffer." Now, if you ask them before you went, "Did you know you were gonna suffer? You were gonna be cold, exhausted, tired, some points just wanting it to be over?" "Oh, yeah." They knew they were gonna suffer. So suffering is a side effect of what we're doing down here. We don't come here to suffer, but it's a side effect. So I'll give you one small example. There's two men. One of them is a wealthy part of a family in the United Arab Emirates and born into this wealthy family as a chef that's a five-star chef cooking in the kitchen. He eats great meals all his life, never had junk food. And now he's a wealthy man himself. And he goes out to his favorite five-star restaurant and he has his best meal. He's going to have gratitude for that meal. Yes, he's going to enjoy it. And gratitude is a magnet and generator of abundance of the thing that we're grateful for. So it's a good thing. Any expression of love helps our growth. Now, there's another man. He is in Haiti. He's got a wife and two children. He works making very little money with odd jobs. They live in a little mud hut with a thatched roof. And sometimes they go without food. And now it's been 2 days and they had no food. And the man is watching his children suffer. He's seeing the anguish and desperation on his wife's face. He feels like a failure as a caretaker for his family. And he's desperate. He doesn't know what to do. And he finally gets a job that day, 2 days with no food in his family. And he makes enough money to buy a small bag of rice and beans. No salt, no flavorings, just very bland meal. He takes it home. His wife cooks it up and they eat the meal. It is difficult for that billionaire, I would say impossible, to muster the level of gratitude that that poor Haitian man had. So by choosing a tougher challenge, he generated more gratitude, which helps grow creation. So in
Mm,
the tough environment where it's hard to love and we manage to do it, it's like using heavier weights when you're lifting weights. You grow more, you grow fast. You grow really quickly here on earth. And just to sum up this little section, one woman was being taken through heaven and meeting various spirits, and she meets this one spirit that's just beautiful and shining brighter with more love and joy and all these positive things. And she goes, "Wow, you're so beautiful and so evolved and so benevolent. How did you get to be this way?" And this spirit said, "Well, I had a lot of earthly lifetimes, a lot of tough lessons." And that's how they grew.
right. So, how do we hold both those truths, right? So, how do we tell without bypassing people's pain and their suffering? So, what do we tell people who you're growing more, you're learning more gratitude for people who can't eat, for people who are getting children that are getting raped, for all of these things, you know? How do you hold both of those truths without and acknowledge the fact that there's real pain here? What do you tell people?
Well, I would say just look at your earthly examples. Any time that you have to do something great that's going to
Mhm,
involve
mhm,
suffering. So ask the Olympic athletes if they suffered in their training.
mhm.
Ask a
Okay.
person who starts a business if they suffered. My God, they work 14, 16-hour days. So the faster we do things and the more progress we make, the more suffering there is. So if I tell you, you got a half an hour to walk a mile, you're
Mm,
going to have a nice leisurely walk, but it's going to take you a half hour. If I say, "Oh, you want to make progress and get there in 7 minutes?" Well, you're going to sprint. Now your legs are going to be tired. You're going to be out of breath. You're going to be exhausted and sweating and uncomfortable. So when you do things fast, there's suffering involved. I tell you, you've got 3 years to build a house. Okay. What if I tell you you got 3 weeks? You're going to be working some 14-hour days and really suffering.
mhm,
So it's a
mhm.
side effect of the work we're doing. Anytime you
Mm.
do things fast, anytime you make changes quickly, there's more suffering. And we're making a lot
Yes,
of
yes.
changes really fast around this planet. Huge
Yes,
jump
we
in growth
are.
to have any earthly lifetime. Huge jump in
Yes,
consciousness. Huge growth
yes.
of love.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm happy about that. So, can you give anyone like that when you talked about reaching the universal consciousness, what type of practices, spiritual practices would you offer someone who says, "I want to feel that. I want to walk out my door and I want to see light in the world. I want to see the beauty in the world," because you talked about some spiritual practices. What would you tell people?
Well, there's the ones that most people in the New Age spirituality community are aware of, and that's things like meditation and learning, guarding your thoughts and words. That's really important. We're powerful manifestors. So you don't want to say things like, I am just sick and tired. Well, you don't want to be sick and you don't want to be tired. So you want to say something like that. You know what? I've had enough of this and this is not going to be part of my life. But
Yeah.
some of the things that are good to raise consciousness are not some crazy esoteric things that, are really difficult. It's really easy, actually. Spend time in nature. Nature
Yes.
has a very powerful positive energy. And if you can spend some time in nature, put your cell phone on airplane mode and spend some time walking in a park and with a friend or by yourself, that's really positive. Swimming in a natural body of water is very good for grounding, or standing barefoot in grass if it's safe
Yes.
to do so. Grounding. And probably the biggest thing is tiny acts of kindness and
Kindness,
compassion.
service.
Service.
Yes.
Yeah.
You wanna, yeah, feel good, go help. Go
Yeah, so
serve. This is what
there
I
was
say.
a study done many years ago that had nothing to do with spirituality or any of the stuff we're talking about, and they took people who were clinically depressed for decades, and they tried medications and treatments and all sorts of stuff, and all they did is they said, "Okay," it was a small group, and they said, "Every day we're gonna do some service to humanity." So day 1, they work in a food kitchen, serving food to the homeless, and day 2, they go to a retirement community, and they're talking to these elderly, and then the next day, they do a neighborhood cleanup, and they're doing something every day, service to humanity, and most of them, by the end of the week, reported feeling much better, the depression fading. Yeah,
Yes,
service to
absolutely.
humanity. And so
And I was
joy is the biggest sign of spiritual maturity. Anything that brings you joy raises your vibration.
yes.
Humor that's not at the expense of somebody else, service to others, creative endeavors like creating music or painting or anything that brings you joy, spending time with children, especially if you kind of put yourself in their consciousness, the grandparent who is playing the game with his child. That's really good for raising vibration because children are the most spiritually mature of any group. So anything that brings you joy, not at the expense of others, is great at raising your vibration.
Okay, so I want to kinda explore the plant medicine, the plant spirits. Some time ago, I was maybe, about 3 years ago, I was flirting with the idea of sitting with ayahuasca. And so I started researching it, didn't even know what it was. I don't even remember how it came up. But again, source will bring you the medicine that you need most at that moment. And so I was in Panama and I read that, you have to change your diet. You have to follow this dieta and with much respect now. So back then I just didn't have that understanding. So I was a smoker. I smoked cigarettes. I ate a lot of meat then. And so I was just like, oh my God, this is going to disrupt my entire flow, right?
Absolutely.
About the medicine. But now, 3 years later, I'm pretty much plant-based and I don't smoke cigarettes or anything, and I've been called to different plants now. And so I went last year and had an iboga ceremony. I went to an iboga ceremony, and that is such an amazing. It's like if you wanna know the truth about yourself, sit with iboga because iboga is a plant in a consciousness of truth. Right? And it's not like ayahuasca. I haven't sat with ayahuasca, but I've heard that that takes you kind of out of your body. Well, iboga is very grounding. It leaves you in your body as you do the journey. And so you get to meet your soul You get to meet your ancestors if you don't know them, and you get, um just a lot of clarity, a lot of things come up, and the medicine sits with you also starts to work on you even before you take it, before you
Wow.
ingest it. Yeah, it does, it's such a beautiful medicine. Even cacao, you don't have to ingest cacao, just if you come into my house someone came into my home. I am, just finished a facilitator's course for cacao, and someone came into my home and said, "Wow, I feel the spirit of cacao in your home," and I thought, "This is beautiful. This is me having this journey with cacao pretty much every day," you know? So, how do you feel about plant consciousness and plant spirits? And another thing before you go there, we have this earth has criminalized cannabis, and cannabis is a plant spirit. It has an intelligence. And I want people who are out there, I know, like, yeah, I mean, we say, oh, it's an illicit drug. It is not. It is not. I don't see it that way. That says that Iboga is not an illicit drug, but cannabis is. They're all plants. They all have a consciousness. And so I don't want people to think that's an illicit drug. I know here on earth, we lock people up and criminalize it, but it's just not true. What did wh has anybody, in your research said anything about, like, meeting the plant spirits when they went there, or how do you feel about that?
Oh, yeah, many people have met the spirits of, like, ayahuasca and plant spirits.
Really?
So they do have a consciousness, they do have a spirit, even a tree. For instance, in the
Mm,
future, as our consciousness raises and we become an ascended species, we're not gonna destroy ourselves, uh, cutting down a tree will be considered barbaric. That's a living sentient being with feelings and thoughts,
yes.
and we just can't communicate with the tree right now. Some people can, but
Yes.
plants do have spirits, and even Mother Earth has a collective group of spirits that we call Gaia. That's intelligent, that's conscious, that's aware, just like a human being. And so many of these plant medicines are good in certain ways when used for the right reasons, not
Yes.
recreationally. And that is why so many indigenous cultures have ceremonies that involve things like mescaline and ayahuasca and iboga and those kind of
Mhm.
things.
And
And
cacao, mama cacao. I
mama
love
cacao.
them.
So they are teaching and learning tools. So as an example, I smoked DMT once, which is the active ingredient in ayahuasca. Instead of having a 4 to 6 hour experience, you have about a 10 to 15-minute experience. But in
Oh,
that experience, my father, who I thought didn't like me, and we had constantly been having tension between us for decades, um, I had flashes of all these things he did from when I was a little child to when he saved me from drowning to when I was in my 20s and my favorite Christmas ornaments weren't there in the box. We were decorating the tree and they weren't there, and I was upset. And he said, "Well, hold on, I'll be back." And he came back an hour and a half later. He had went to a bunch of stores to find my favorite. I mean, I saw all this stuff about my dad. That
wow.
okay, the issue isn't he doesn't love me. The issue was he grew up in a home where his father was an alcoholic and his mother was this codependent, and they didn't talk about emotions, and he didn't know how to express love, and he was always on my side, and that healed my
Mm,
relationship with my father. After
yes.
that, we became best friends, and it was kind of a funny moment. As soon as I came down from the DMT, I called my dad because some of the memories from when I was like 2 years old. And I said, "Dad, did this happen? Yes. Did this happen? Yes. Did you remember this? Yes." And he kind of was like, "Why is my son asking me?" And I never told him. But after that, our
Wow.
relationship healed, and he's my best friend now. And he almost never used to say, "I love you." And it's rare now that we have a conversation where he doesn't tell me when we say goodbye that I love you. And so it can heal. And especially uh, Iboga is like one of the, the master plants, as you know, for that.
Yes, it is.
And it is not
Yes. It is
recreational. I mean,
no, it's
neither is
not. It's very
ayahuasca.
sacred.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you
It's
smoke
very sacred.
DMT and you're standing up, you're going down. I mean, it is not a recreational drug. So, yeah,
Oh,
it's
so
very
that's what I was
addictive.
gonna ask you. So you said you smoked DMT, which is in ayahuasca. So instead of you
The
having
active
like a 4 to
ingredient.
6 hour journey, it was 15 minutes?
Yes. Yes.
In 15 minutes, you got that clarity and you were able to heal your relationship with your father.
Yeah, and ayahuasca, for instance, has been proven to be about 40 to 60% effective for hardcore drug addicts like
Yes.
cocaine or crack or something like that. That is better than Narcotics Anonymous, which is 15 to 25%. And I
Yeah.
think it was John Hopkins University just did a major study about psilocybin, the active ingredient in
Yes. Yes,
magic
yes.
mushrooms, that it has
Yes.
been very effective at treating depression. They have found that ecstasy, MDMA, which was originally a pharmaceutical that psychologists use, is effective at treating post traumatic stress syndrome. Ketamine treatments are helping. So the plant medicines, especially the psychedelics, are there to teach us. I got
Mhm.
taught about nature on my first I think it was my second trip on LSD. I used to take psychedelics, but my guides told me, "You've learned all you can, stop," and so I did. But
Enough
I
is
walked
enough.
outside. Yeah, that was enough. I walked outside and I saw my little garden of succulents that I had planted, and I looked at them and I realized they're alive. They're as alive as I am, and I've been treating late nature like a thing, like a resource to be exploited. The term natural resources. We're
Mhm.
not separate from nature. We're part
Right,
of
we are
nature.
nature.
So when we
Yes.
when we destroy nature, we destroy ourselves. And so I went from being a total way far white right conservative values where I didn't care about nature. I'm not calling conservatives bad. I don't have bad feelings on either side.
Yeah.
But I was this, okay, it's just a thing, but I don't care about cutting down a tree. I went from that to touching plants and saying, "Oh, you're so beautiful. Thank you for beautifying this place," and talking to flowers and trees. I have become a person that my old engineering self would have ridiculed.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
plant medicines are there to teach us. They're there to guide us. They're there
Yes,
to
they
help us
are.
grow. And when you mature spiritually enough, you no longer need the plant medicine. You no longer need the training wheels. It's like training wheels
Mhm,
on a bike. So it's to help us, to teach us, to help us grow.
mm. So what do you think about community? I think that's also important for us to live in community now, to build communities to support each other. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's actually going to be the future. In my second book, The New World of Love, I talk about that about 150 years from now, we'll all be living in small communities of about 100 to 150 people.
Mm,
Right now, we have this illusion that we're separate because we have this thing called money where I do something I don't want to do because you tell me to. And then you give me this money, and now I get to give it to somebody else and tell them to do something they don't want to do, but now they got to work for me. So it
yeah,
makes us feel like we're independent. We're not. We are connected. We are a community. If you think about it, human beings don't have big, sharp teeth. We don't have giant claws. We're not particularly good in a fight against a predator. The reason we became the dominant species on our planet isn't just raw intelligence. Dolphins are every bit as intelligent as we are. We became the dominant species because of our ability to cooperate, to help each other.
yeah,
And there is even something called the reflexive gene or the vagus neuron. I don't think there's any scientifically accepted nomenclature to describe it, but it's a very well known phenomenon. And that is in the higher mammals, the great apes, the primates, human beings, elephants, that kind of thing, dolphins. What they have discovered is that when a person commits an act of compassion towards another, or when you just witness it, you get this feeling inside. You see these YouTube videos where they rescue a dog or something, and
yeah,
whoa, you get that feeling. It creates this oxytocin and release of feel good chemicals. And
yeah,
so that is God's divine plan of nature showing us that we were born to be a community and to help each other and to be our brother's keeper. It's literally built into our DNA. And so
yeah,
community is so important. And today we have lost connection with each other and with nature. And we are going to face some hard lessons. We're facing it now, the division in our country,
yeah,
and all these things. The selfishness is a hard lesson in you don't want this. You want a community where you love each other, you help each other, where if somebody is stranded by the side of the road, they can't be there for 30 seconds until two or three people come to show up to help. And that
mm,
world is coming as our consciousness raises, as our science discovers the ability to measure and manipulate quantum energies. They are going to see the energetic network that connects all of us. And they are going to go tell the world and say, we can't do things anymore like allow 70,000 people who are suffering with mental illness and drug addiction to suffer in the streets of Los Angeles. That
Yeah.
harms the whole. So
Yeah.
there will be a time when we recover and remember the importance of community.
Mm.
And we're seeing a growing movement of communities. People are forming intentional communities, what they used to call as communes in the 1960s. That's returning. And through some hard lessons, we're going to start to learn to cooperate with our neighbors. And it's going to be a beautiful thing because those who are going to solve difficult times and get through the difficult times in the future are not going to be the ultra wealthy who build underground bunkers with food supplies. That food's going to rot. They're going to be in trouble. The
Mm.
ones who are going to thrive through difficult times of change are going to
Mhm.
be the ones who form communities and loving, compassionate relationships with their fellow human beings and
Mm.
cooperate instead of the fierce competition and the me first attitude that's so prevalent in society today.
Mhm.
Community is our way of surviving and transforming to the new world of love that's coming.
Community is the medicine. That's what
Yes.
Melanoma Some says. This is
We
a
were
book.
not meant to be alone.
This is a book that I'm been reading.
I'll have
The
to.
heal It's the healing
Oh, I like
wisdom.
that.
Yes, the healing wisdom of Africa by Melanoma Some. And he talks about community. That is our medicine. Bashar, I'm going to go back to Bashar, talks about ET contact.
Yes,
And and we're very close to it, as in
extremely
I'm
close.
thinking like next year or something where we'll start to like just understand that we're not alone even if we see ships hovering. I
Mhm.
saw a ship. I saw a ship. I did. I was
Oh,
driving.
I'm
I s
envious.
You are? Well, that is just so like, why would I see a ship? But I
Because
know
of your
that it was.
vibrational presence.
I was driving and I was like, "Wait a minute." And I was driving on the highway. It was about 80 miles, 75 miles an hour. And I was
That
like,
don't
"Oh my
admit to a
god,
crime.
I know, but I wanted to get my phone. Like I need to." And I heard, like I needed to stop. It was unsafe for me to do it. I guess it was just for me. Um,
Yes.
but I was like, "Oh my goodness." And I wasn't afraid. I went and told people too, and they were like, "What? Did you get pictures?" I was like, "I was driving, but I just saw it. It was just sitting there. It was there. It wasn't moving. It was hovering." And I thought, "Oh my goodness, we are not alone." So, do you feel like humanity is spiritually prepared for this type of this level of awareness, or could it still invoke fear and disruption? Because supposedly we're going to understand the origin of who we are. You didn't just come from your mama's womb, okay? That we're going to see the origin and hear about it. Do you think we're ready?
Yes, of course we're ready because it's about to happen, which means we're just about ready. So, for instance, 1947, uh, a, a ship crashed in Roswell. It was a great species of gray aliens, and the government covered it up. They did the right thing. This is 1947, 2 years after the end of World War
Oh
II. People
gosh.
were paranoid. People were skittish. If a spaceship had landed on the White House lawn in 1947, there'd been a panic worldwide. There'd have been a military response. Today, I'm not so sure. So it's probably going to be my my friends, my family, the Pleiadians. I have vague memories of a life in the Pleiades. They are a group of benevolent human beings. They look like us, and they are our cosmic parents. They have been instrumental in seeding life on this planet. They've been watching over us for a long time. They have a non interference policy until we're ready. It's probably going to be them who makes first contact because they've been waiting forever to meet their children. And there's going to be some people that react with fear, and there's going to be some religious groups that say they're demons and all sorts of things. But
Yeah.
most people are ready. About 60% of the people in the world believe in extraterrestrial life. Nothing to be afraid of. About 95% of the species in our galaxy are either neutral or benevolent. Most of them have very good intentions for us. The ones who are misbehaving are being kept in check by a group that has gotten together to kind of keep the peace in the galaxy, and they've been very successful. The Pleiadians are involved in that. And they've done this many times before. They're not going to show up in mass. That's going to cause a panic. And so, what they're going to do is the same thing these animal rescue people do. They get to this dog that's been living on the street, and what's the first thing the dog does? He's growling and snarling, and they slowly approach, and they're very gentle, and they give him a little food, and they help him, and then 6 months later, the dog is jumping and playing and wants to lick him in the face.
Yeah.
So they're going to turn their shields off. They're here now. They have shielding. We can't see them. And they'll turn their shields off when they're at as a distance that we feel safe, like offshore, or maybe at the beach, or kind of high up. And they're going to make lots of individual appearances. They'll show up at a park where there's a few people, and maybe at a schoolyard or something like that. And then when everybody's kind of comfortable, and then they'll make a more public appearance. But it's probably going to start disclosure, governments admitting they've recovered crashed ships within the next couple of years. Definitely by 2035, everybody's going to know about them. Probably gonna happen sooner than that. Bashar is talking
Yeah.
about 2027.
Yeah.
Cryon, one of my favorite channelers, I don't think
I
he's given
love
me a date.
Cryon.
Yeah, Cryon's good. And there's a couple of other Pleiadian channelers that I like, but it's gonna be a wonderful time. They're not gonna show up and share all their technology with us for the same reason you don't give a gun to a 2-year-old child. You give a gun to an adult, and he can go hunting and provide food for the family, or use it for good, but or scare away a predator or something. But yeah, they're not going to do that. So what they will be able to do is they will give us a 3D holographic recording of our history, probably spanning back 200,000 years. So we're
Yes.
going to have
Can
to
you
rewrite all the
imagine
history books.
watching that movie?
We can see the Roman Empire. We can see how the pyramids were built. We can see Cleopatra. We can see all this stuff. And they will probably, I'm not sure about this, they will probably be able to give us anything we currently possess or anything that we've had in the past. So, for instance, in 1943, when Tesla died, he was working on some beam weapons. The government didn't want that to get into Russian hands, so they took all this stuff. So they can give us a copy of that, or they can say, "Hey, you guys have a problem with this certain kind of cancer. There's this doctor over there in India who's got the cure, but he's a nobody and nobody's listening. Go talk to him."
Mm,
So they can give us a lot of stuff we have and point out, this is the direction you want to go.
mm.
But they're going to be really a wonderful teaching and learning experience for us. It's going to be our parents guiding us through the terrible twos, which is where we are in our consciousness. If you were to take the evolvement of human beings over tens of thousands of years and put it into human lifetime, we're in the terrible twos. We're just realizing maybe I shouldn't punch that other kid in the sandbox. Maybe we shouldn't solve our problems by blowing things up. We still got to go through
Mm.
our teenage years. That's
Yeah.
like 2070 ish. We're going to go through that. But
Wow.
they're going to be a wonderful benefit. They're going to be here to help. There's nothing to be afraid of. We're going to learn a lot from them. And they actually learn from us the same way we learn from our children. Yeah.
I'm excited.
They learn
I'm
from us because we
excited.
have ways of having fun and showing love, which adults kinda lose. But, yeah, it's gonna be a wonderful time. That this is a really exciting time to be a human being here on planet Earth
You
and be
sound like my
experiencing first
girlfriend.
contact.
Yeah, my girlfriend, she says that all the time. It's such an exciting time. She's
It
always
is.
so happy. And I'm like, yeah, the verdict is still out on that. I'm always like, I don't know about all of this excitement, but um, I don't know. It is fun to consider that this is going to happen. And in addition to that, whatever love and support that we can receive, I am all for it. So I'm not afraid, and I welcome it because we need some support down here
We
on
do.
this earth. So you said that there were 3 planets that were the toughest. Do you know the other 2?
No, I've heard maybe a dozen times in my research that Earth is definitely the hardest planet in this
Yeah.
galaxy, which is full of life, to have a life. Only one man was told there are only 2 other planets like Earth. That's how tough it is. Now think about
Yeah.
what that means. This galaxy has, what, a couple of 100 billion stars, and it's a
Mhm,
pinpoint of light in space. It would
mhm.
take you traveling at the speed of light, 7.5 times around the Earth in 1 second, traveling at that speed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to cross the pinpoint of light we call the Milky Way galaxy. And then you'd have to repeat it for 1,200 lifetimes. And then there's hundreds of billions of galaxies. And this is one of three toughest. Pat yourself on the back that you're even here. I mean, you're doing great if you're in this master learning class.
Yeah, this one is a tough one, I have to
Yeah.
say. It's very interesting. So, did you have a near-death experience yourself?
No, never. I've had
Okay.
some STEs, which are called spiritually transformative experiences. And I started, oh, it must have been about 10 years ago. One of my interviewees said, "You're going to start developing psychic abilities." So I laughed at him because I thought that was hogwash. I was an engineer and I knew that those were just scammers,
Mhm.
preying on the foolish, taking their money. And then it started happening to me. And now I have guides that I speak with on a daily basis, and I do information channeling, which
Mm.
kind of disturbs me sometimes because when I channel, I'm not like Cryon, where Lee Carroll remembers everything. I'm like
Yeah.
more like Bashar, where he doesn't remember one word. I have a memory of it being a dream. So I'll see myself on a show like this or in a talk, and I'll watch the recording and I'll say something that I didn't get from my research and I didn't know. And I'm like, what? What? And then I go online and look it up in a panic to verify it because the ego
Mm,
is still up there running the show sometimes. But
mm,
yeah, I do information channeling. And so
mm.
I have no doubt about the realism of it all.
Yeah, yeah. Me either. Me either. Well, here's the last question of this conversation. For someone who's listening, for everyone who's listening, who maybe feels stuck in fear right now, what is the one truth or shift that helped you move from fear into freedom?
I would say probably that we're loved unconditionally. I recall first starting my near death experience research and it conflicting with what I was told in Christianity
Yeah.
and in my Catholic upbringing, which is God loves you. Oh, he loves you so much. But if you break his rules, he's going to burn you in hell forever.
Yes.
No, no, every soul and about 3% of the NDEs I've heard they had negative afterlife experiences. But in every single case, when they cry out to heaven for help, they get rescued. But no matter what we do down here, we're not failures. We are doing a great work for heaven. We are protected and loved more than our minds are capable of comprehending. Now, might feel like we're alone down here, but we are never, ever alone. And we're
Never.
doing great work. And so, for those out there who are struggling, you got to understand that struggling does not mean failure. In fact, it's the
Mm,
opposite. It's when we're challenged the most when we're growing the fastest. And the second thing is we're loved. We're part of a great
yes.
success story. We are
Yes.
part of a divine plan of creation. And no matter what happens or how difficult these lives are, they're only a blink of an eye compared to eternity. And someday when you wake up, you're going to see the benefits of everything you did here in this earthly life. So it's important as we go through each day to try and live in the moment, not be too worried about what's going to happen tomorrow or angry about what happened yesterday, to shrink our world, turn off the negativity of the news. It's a well crafted fear report that's
Yes.
poison for the soul. And just focus on being the best child of God you can be and to treat your fellow human being with love and compassion, the people you come in contact with every day. Cut yourself some slack. Does any parent on earth expect perfection from their child? No, heaven knows we're going to make a lot of mistakes. So we need to cut ourselves and other people a lot of slack and do our best to be loving, kind, compassionate people and forgive ourselves when we fail. And I fail on a daily basis despite everything I know.
I agree. I agree. I'm glad. Yes, you are not alone and you are so loved. And so, thank you for this conversation. I really appreciate you coming to hang out with me. You're welcome back anytime. And I hope this conversation reminds you that your truth is not something that you have to earn or that you have to become. It's something that you are remembering. We
Yes.
are remembering. Even as you honor where you have been or who you've been called to be, because both paths are sacred. And
Yes.
as we close this conversation, may you carry this with you that beyond the noise, beyond the fear, beyond the questions, we are at the very, very core pure love. We are loved, and I love that. I really do. I'm so glad. It makes me so happy to know that. And whether, this happens through near death experiences, a spiritual awakening, or just the quiet whispers that you hear at nighttime in your soul, the invitation still remains the same. It's asking you to remember. Remember your light, remember your connection, remember that your presence here, no matter how challenging it is not by accident. It is not. So if this conversation stirred up something in you today, I want you to trust it and sit with it. Just let it marinate, right? Let it guide you to a deeper truth. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, share, tell David exactly ask him a question so we can bring him back and he can answer it. All right. Leave us a comment. This is where fear ends and freedom begins. And until the next time, peace and love, family. Thank you, David. Thank you for coming.
It's a
I
pleasure to be
appreciate
on the
you.
show. Thank you so much for the invite.
Yes. Peace.